Hey, welcome to OneLeg Up, where we discuss how you can deliver the very best customer experience and how you can achieve zero marketing waste. I'm Casey Urias, the tech alchemist here at OneLeg, and if it seems a little bit different, well, it is. We're recording a very special podcast today from Dallas, Texas. I'm joined by Ed Davis, our Chief Operations Ninja, and Vic Sun, our CEO and Mastermind. Guys, how are things, and more importantly, what are you doing in Dallas?
Yeah, what are we doing in Dallas, Vic?
We're doing a number of things.
We are doing a number of things.
Yeah.
We are. The world's opening up, Casey, and in a slight twist than what we've experienced the last couple of years, we were invited to do an in-person business pitch, and so we've just been here since last night, working on getting acclimated because it is really cold out. In fact, it's snowing. Which is weird to say about Dallas. And then tomorrow we'll go and meet with hopefully a future new client of OneLeg's.
Wow, that's really exciting and fantastic news. And I guess only you guys can make it snow in Dallas, right? It's your appearance there that's making it happen.
I'm used to rain, but snow is somewhat precipitous.
Yeah, I brought in the cold weather.
Yeah. His steely resolve made it cold.
My presence made it right. Just cool the whole city.
That's right.
That's what I was saying. All right. So with this special episode of OneLeg Up, we want to discuss killer content and how it is the unsung hero of lead conversion. So we hear a lot of clients say that there is that they have content like brochures, websites, and they had to invest in content, videos, and creative, and they're still getting leads. Why do I need to even think about doing something that I haven't done before? And why is it that, this is for Vic, why can't companies just do promos, coupons, and different sales? Or discount sales, rather.
I think if you want to do what everybody else is doing, I think
sure, have a ball.
Yeah. That's pretty much a status quo in a lot of industries, including home improvement manufacturing,
Yeah, you name it. And I think that, just because it's the way that it's always been done doesn't mean that that's the way that it should be done moving forward, right? The world's constantly evolving. So that's sort of the short answer. I think more importantly, really what happens is people have built a business based on a certain way of operating, right? And that's made it comfortable. But what you see in a lot of companies is, if you really want to have accelerated growth or outsized growth, you really have to look at things differently. And so, one of the things we do run into from time to time, more often than we care to admit, whether it's home improvement, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's some of the B2B, some of the companies in the B2B space, it's really about, well, I've got the stuff that I've always had and it works. Why on earth do I need to think about apps and videos and user generated content and reviews and whatnot? So Vic, how do we tackle that with them? How do we convince them to go a different route?
I think we convince them when by not convincing them and saying, well, look, the question is, if you decide not to do anything, and clearly when people speak to us, they have a need, they have some form of desire to make some improvement, and we say, well, you clearly think that there's room for improvement. What if you don't do anything different and you just keep going? Will things improve?
Right.
And if the answer is no, which is kind of a rhetorical question, in a certain degree, then you have to do something different, right? That really is not just about standing out, but I think a lot of the times it's a decision for a lot of the companies who no longer want to be just part of challenging the other people who are doing the same thing. They want to really dominate, or at least start working on being the leader in that particular space.
Yeah, and I think it probably goes to some other fundamental challenges that companies typically have. Number one, what's our idea? How you want videos and you want content? I don't even know how to wrap my head around that. You want me to just go, film the guys out on the manufacturing line or whatnot? The other bit that we always run into is the price. Well, I can pay $1,500 and get a brochure made. Well, sure you can. And it was probably done by my 17-year-old nephew who's decent at, Microsoft Word. But is that really what you want the experience, right? And that's what this podcast is about. Is that what you want your customers, your potential customers, is that what you want their experience to be? Just some sort of brochure that you could get printed up at FedEx Kinko's or something like
Well,
that?
I think the challenge really for a lot of the companies is they see what other people are doing and they can't get out of it because it's like, well, that company's doing well. Let's copy what they're doing.
Yeah.
Let's just slap on our logo and maybe some colors.
And what do I say to you, Vic, when you say, when we're sitting around and we're strategizing, we're thinking about things, you bring up this competitor in the marketing space? What do I say to you? Go ahead. What do I say? I say, who gives a fuck about what they're doing?
Exactly.
I care about what we're doing.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the answer to these companies who bring up, well, such and such, company that we compete with in this geography does this and it's working for them. There's all sorts of other reasons that go into that. So, yeah.
And I think I'll add the logical bit, the math side of things, is that a lot of the times, the challenge really here is that there is some level of success, right? There's going to
Sure.
be, okay, well, I'll buy 100 of these leads and I'll convert 20% of them
Just by making a phone call.
just by trying, well, not several phone calls,
You know what I mean?
right?
Yeah.
And then out of that, I'll sell 5 to 8.
Sure.
And so now you're at 5% conversion, 8% if you're lucky from 100 leads. And then the 92 to 95 of them really were just a waste of time. And so a lot of the times they get stuck in this math where they go, well, how can I just get one more sale? Because that provides
Sure.
profit. Not thinking the other way, which is, I think this is the asymmetrical way of how we do things, is there's 92 of these
That you didn't.
that what if you sold 1 out of every 10 of those?
Sure.
And the answer to that is, well, you can't solve the problem at the level you created it. You've got to go about it differently. And in this case, it's really, what is it that you are showing people, right? Because the majority of the people, the 92 that don't convert, they're the people who aren't ready. And so you can provide a promo every freaking month, right? And you can go and describe, well, we're not high pressure sales, so get an estimate anyway. Everybody's doing it. And the 92 continue to not convert because, let's face it, they're not ready.
Sure.
No amount of convincing will take place. And so I think that's really the challenge. But I think it's a challenge. And I think maybe you and I can debate this, but it's a challenge that's based more on the philosophy. Because if you do
Sure.
the math and you look at the outcome from the companies that are doing it, there's really no debate. It's like, it is
Right.
more effective.
Yeah, and I think we got into that in one of our podcasts when we talked about serious versus curious and how
Mhm.
you have to talk to everybody on a spectrum. But Casey, you clearly have a job to do in managing. I don't know how I do it when I'm on a podcast managing just him, and now you got to manage both of us. So we're going to stop.
It's okay. No, it's all right. No, what I wanted to ask you, because we've clearly talked about the pain points of doing the same thing as everybody else. So the next thing that I wanted to get from you both is, what should companies do if they do want to pursue this genuine content first strategy? What's the first step?
So the first step, I say this jokingly, is to recognize that you actually have a problem, right? And as soon as you can do that and acknowledge that, then you're ultimately open to what comes next. And realistically, what then comes next is, let's not just do content for the sake of doing content.
Right. Yeah.
Right? Because then we're just doing stuff to make ourselves feel good and go, well, well, OneLeg, you told me I needed content. So we've done a video and we did an explainer and no, it needs to be organized, right? It needs to make an impact. It needs to be consistent. It needs to tell a story. It needs to encapsulate not only what it is that you're about as an organization, but what your customers or potential customers expect of you in terms of their engagement of you. And so, the very first thing that we would always say you need to do is we need to do a bit of discovery in service of coming up with a big idea, a campaignable idea. And that's a bit of a process, right? That's not something that you can just go say to your agency, whether it's us or anybody else, hey guys, I need a campaignable idea. And then they don't just go lock themselves away in a room and come back a week later and go, Avis, we try harder. And that's not an intentional plug for Avis. It was just the very first one that came to mind. Really what needs to happen is there needs to be some discovery work. There needs to be some research. We need to ideally talk to some of your customers and even better, some of your customer or potential customers who haven't yet purchased yet, right? Because we can ask them questions about what is your expectations? What's been your impression so far? What did you like about your experience? What didn't you like? I mean, there's so many different things that we can uncover in a short span of time. Then, we really want to put all of that in contrast to what are your actual competitors doing? And this is the only time in which I'm going to give a crap about what a competitor is doing. I want to know what they're doing so that I can go, I don't want to do that. I don't want to look or sound similar to what they're doing. I want to find that clear ocean, that clear white space in which to position my client to win, right? And then once we've got all of that, I can come up with a proposition, I can come up with a call to action, and I can come up with the visuals and the look and feel of a campaign, and then I can present that to a client. Not me, we have smarter people in our organization who are able to do that, but then we can present that to the client and say, this is what this looks and sounds like. This is what we think it'll have an impression on. This is how it hits on the emotional and the rational side of the thinking process when somebody's in the mood to buy, or if they're not, right? And that's one of the huge benefits that you get when you actually are deliberate about the idea, the campaignable idea that you come up with, is it not only accounts for both sides of how somebody might make a decision, emotional and rational, it accounts for wherever they might find themselves on the spectrum of buying, right? If they're just curious and kicking around and tires and whatnot, and just, well, I'm just going to go see whatever, we can talk to you, right? We can talk to you where you're at in your journey. If you're ready to buy and you want to estimate right now because you need somebody in tomorrow to clean up, your air conditioner that crapped out, great. We know exactly what to say to you too.
Yeah, I think part of that.
So it's a little bit of undercover boss and then revamping, it sounds
100%.
like.
That's right.
Yeah. And there are players in there, let's face it, right? Let's talk about some of the challenges. Is a lot of the times, and we've come across competitors, I don't even know if they're called competitors at this point, but agencies who would be like, well, we can do this. And really what they're doing is the creative without the research, without the thought into it. You know what I mean? And then the challenge as well, I think, which, we have been solving for our clients and for the people that have been hitting us up has been, well, we do have creative director and photographer, videographers, actual creatives, whereas a lot of the agencies are just kind of like, well, we can execute on it without the actual planning.
Sure.
The thought into it.
And Vic, on that note, how will all this new content and videos and creatives actually help them sell more? Like, is there evidence of that?
Absolutely. I think it's not, is there evidence of that? Like, how much of that are you going to now start leveraging to continue calibrating? Because whenever you do the content, one thing that's being missed, because it's a big first step. But once you do take that step, a lot of people don't realize you're collecting more data now from your A/B testing, and now you're calibrating. It's the Kaizen methodology, and your creatives and the messaging and the positioning improves over funnels, which now affects all of your campaigns. And again, what Ed was talking about, a big, long idea, campaignable idea, it trickles down, and then you can really calibrate that messaging as you collect the information, as you do we do a lot of A/B testing.
Right, and I think that it is a good catalyst to, and we should probably do a podcast on this. It's a good catalyst to organizing your sales and marketing, right? Because we know outside of what somebody might put into a CRM or something along those lines, fundamentally, companies are fairly random and chaotic in terms of how they manage and what assets they have and when they go to market and how they go to market and all that kind of stuff. If you actually put some deliberate thought process into developing a campaign platform, right, and then methodically developing the supporting assets, no matter where they are, based on the customers, potential customers, what you want to say and when, it just inherently means you're far more organized, and you can get into the attribution models, and it'll be easier for you to understand, okay, where is this piece of content most impactful in the conversation with somebody about X? You'll be able to make that understanding.
When you start doing that, the impact really is twofold. On the marketing side, on your marketing qualified leads, conversion increases simply because it's the right messaging now. Now, for the people who are serious, right, and we've talked about those are sales qualified leads. Here's the one thing that I think a lot of salespeople sometimes don't like hearing about this, right, or sales managers or gurus or trainers, right, whatever you want to call those experts, is that, well, the salesperson does all the job, and what you're saying is, and I've said this many times, what happens to these sales qualified leads is you're taking an order. You still need salespeople. You still need people who are trained in customer service and being able to deliver a pitch. But the difference there is really, you're increasing the potential of scaling your sales without having to scale the costs of hiring, training, and relying on your salespeople, because now you're moving to the model of taking an order, because those individuals are in fact serious people. They've aligned to your values. The messaging is right. They're consuming the content when they need to be. And so now you're taking that order. And there's really nothing wrong with that.
Sure.
I mean, the biggest companies in the world, they take orders.
They do.
They don't sell. They don't persuade. They have to persuade.
We don't take orders. We're not order takers.
Exactly. So yeah, I think that's one of the major impact is really it's going to be on your bottom line. You may not get more leads because it's not lead generation, but you're going to generate more revenue, because who cares about producing one more lead? I mean, I think most people want to produce one more sale.
Sure.
Yeah, on that same vein of being able to directly correlate your creative to your sales, what's the best way for clients to track their investments and attribute it to the creative directly? Because as you've said in other podcasts, Vic, there's a lot of different factors, a lot of different key players that goes into making a sale. How can business owners and business developers actually attribute that creative investment to a bottom line, to making that sale?
Sure. I think where it starts is that you can now put in, if it's digital, obviously you can use tracking codes and things along those lines. And with the pandemic, one of the really interesting things from the pandemic that has come about from a marketing standpoint, things like QR codes have been around for what, a decade, longer technically, if you start thinking about
longer.
Yeah, I mean, barcodes are the precursor to QR codes, but they just never really went anywhere until the pandemic, right? And everybody, well, how are we going to get people to look at our menu if they, know? And so that was the precipitous of that. And so think about that now, right? If you combine, let's say you're a restaurant, right, and you really want to understand what people really like about your restaurant, right? Certainly, if you have any sort of restaurant management software, you're going to be able to pull reports about, 50 people a night order the ice cream sundae and 20 people order the pie or whatever. But think about where you're really at now, in the sense that you can, because now it's digital, your menu's digital. You can install Hotjar on your digital menu, use the QR code to get people to go to that landing page, and now we can actually track how they go through the actual fucking menu, excuse my language, and now we can actually start manipulating it. It's the wrong word, but it's the right word. We can actually start manipulating people into choices that we really want them to get into.
And with regards to the attribution part, just think about it this way, right? companies are always saying, well, it's a salesperson that's making a sale. They can't attribute that correctly because, well, what if it was a promotion that you had? And there's all kinds of variables, right? So this is really a very simple way. All you have to do is take a look at the content and the creative, and then you start looking at the behavior from each of those funnels, or from your audiences, right? The people who aren't ready for or not, and you will absolutely be able to attribute the fact that, look, when I did this, there were more views, there were more conversions, right? There were more follow-ups. And for the ones who were serious, you will see that your sales team themselves, without you even tracking, you will have higher close rates.
Sure.
And this is the dirty secret of a lot of sales organizations who peddle these thousands of dollars worth of sales. They insist that it's a salesperson and only the salesperson is delivering the sale.
It's not.
Keep in mind that there are hundreds of elements, including the fact that when you get the right person, right, it might not be the salesperson. They're buying the company. They're buying
Correct.
the messaging. They're buying
How
the
was the
guarantees.
weather? Was my wife
Correct.
really excited about this, or was she? No, I mean
Yeah.
it's right. And one of my favorite stories ever about sales versus marketing, right? Because somebody a former client of mine tried to make it really simplistic, because we were trying to figure out how we could impact the sales side, because they just weren't joined up very well. And we pulled this report, and the bottom line of it, the punchline of it, I should actually say, is we get into this room and the VP of sales essentially said, well, everything that we win, it's because of my sales team. And if we lose a deal, right, because we were talking about deal wins, won deals and lost deals, and if we lose, it's because marketing didn't do its job. Well, isn't that convenient?
Well, if you think about it,
Sounds a little narcissistic.
and this is my thing to the sales managers out there. Just think about it this way: if you're having trouble scaling recruiting people, are you really going to be able to recruit them because you're such a great sales trainer that they know you, or because you got a sales training program? Or you could go to them and say, we have the highest buying intent leads. You basically take orders.
And oh, by the way, we've got a great culture.
Exactly. This is the point. Is like if sales managers, there was maybe half a dozen last year that reached out to me and say, oh, one call closes the way it is. And the one thing I asked them was like, what are you doing with your scaling your recruitment? And all of them have basically said it's been hard hiring salespeople and training and firing and going through that. And I say, well,
if you were that awesome, it wouldn't be hard.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, the biggest companies, right, and in home improvement, the ones that can scale, it's their close rates that are going up, not the team. It's because here's the thing, right? They have high buying intent leads.
Yeah.
People go to their websites, see their content, consume it over a period of time, and when they're ready, guess what? You're just there to take an order.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think the part there is which really is sad, is that there's this marketing and sales. It shouldn't be.
No.
You marketing and sales should be one in terms of that cooperation. The marketing team has to produce the high buying intent leads, right? And the sales team doesn't have all this pressure to one call close. They will close. They will ask for the order, but their conversion is so much higher because of the fact that these people are ready, or at least they know they've aligned their values to the company, not because you're trying to go and win through a sales pitch.
And all underpinned by the fact that you had a really high quality idea.
Yeah.
That you were able to build some great assets and content off of, that then got leveraged in the appropriate ways.
I do have one quick question, Ed.
No, you're not allowed to ask
just
questions.
one
It's
question.
only Casey.
We get asked this question. How long does it take? Big long idea, get me from here to here. I've been doing this for 20 years.
Yeah.
What's usually the answer to that?
Well, we're marketers and creative people, and typically they want as much time as you'll possibly give them.
Yeah, of course.
But we've got some really good people, and most agencies worth their salt. If you gave them a brief, within 8 weeks, I think is a fair, within 8 weeks is a fair sort of time frame to go from brief to I'm looking at 3 potential possibilities for a campaign.
Yeah.
And then you refine that over the course of another month. And then you can start actually building the assets and the content that are on the back of that. So, a business quarter is fair to me. You can do it in a shorter period of time. I've seen some companies take 6-8 months to do it.
But why is that so terrible when they've been doing things for 20 years, 10 years, even this moment? And what do you think it's
because people are inherently impatient.
Yeah.
Right? And so it goes back to one of the things we were talking about on a previous podcast. If you are lead motivated, if you are sales motivated, all you care about is how many sales did I make today, this week, this month, this quarter. So therefore, you don't have time for anything else. If you are business motivated, if you are interested in relationship building, this is a drop in the bucket because you plan to be doing this shit for years and years to come.
But isn't that the same thing, though?
It's not.
If I'm in relationships, I'm going to make...
It's not the same thing. Because it's something that you're putting out at the end of the day that you're genuinely excited and proud of. And when you and your team know you've got something good that attract people in, that's a completely different feeling.
Yeah, you're right, Casey. And if I'm interested in a relationship, I'm open to hearing no from a potential customer.
Yeah.
If all I give a shit about is sales, I hear no, but I'm still driving to yes.
Yeah.
Right? So there's absolutely a difference.
But I think the thing that a lot of owners, but does that translate to sales? It's just not right this very minute, but over a period of time, it always wins.
Correct.
I think it's the context of, well, this is where you need to be living because you intend to actually be around. Right. Versus, well, I just want to do here. I don't know what's going to happen here.
Right. And I like I've said before, I think it really just depends on what it is you're trying to build. If you've got a lifestyle business, you've got bills to pay in terms of my Mercedes-Benz 3 million SL, whatever brand it is, I got to make that payment in a week. All you give a shit is how many deals did they close yesterday?
Yeah.
Right?
That's true.
And when am I getting paid?
Yeah, I encourage anybody who's thinking of jumping on the boat for building these creative and innovative campaigns to have sort of a timeline in mind in how much time you're willing to be putting into this campaign and when you need to be reaping those benefits for that campaign. It's always good to approach an agency or any kind of marketing with that in your mind before you start coming up with the ideas. All right. Well, thank you very much for talking with me today. Thank you guys for attending, even though I know you're out and about. As always, I hope you enjoyed our chat and learned a couple of things. And here at OneLeg, we believe in poor marketing pollutes the planet, and that business is full of tired, outdated, indistinct, unremarkable, underperforming marketing that sucks. But what sucks even more is that many companies have forgotten what the most important thing is of all, which is the customer. And we're on a mission on behalf of our clients' customers to change that. To learn more, go to zeromarketingwaste.com, where you can subscribe to our blog and this very podcast. You can also find us and follow us by looking for the Flamingo and OneLeg handle wherever you socialize online. Thanks, and have a wonderful rest of your week.